our next topic, which is one of the most talked about topics in our blockchain community, which is CBDC, central bank digital currencies. With the advent of digital yuan and recently launched e-naira, we definitely need to discuss about it. Is there a possibility of a digital euro? And other countries, other nations jumping in the game of CBDCs. So to talk about that, we have our two amazing guests to talk about this, and we have just to let you know, we'll be joined by Professor Philipp Sandner. He's the head of Frankfurt School of Blockchain. And we have Dr. Oriol Caudevilla, who's the management consultant from Digital Euro Association. And the panel will be moderated by Xiaoqin Zhang, who's the principal manager at AWS. So if we have our panelist and moderator, Mr. Xiaoqin Zhang, is he there?
Introduction, and sorry that if there was a little bit delay, and I'm very excited to just moderate this panel, and as this is the one of the day during the Asia Berlin Summit, and definitely I see CBDC is a topic which has been an emerging topic, which there's a lot of very exciting, work being advanced in both Europe and also in Asia. In general, CBDC, has been on the top of central banks' agenda for quite some time, and from BIS research, almost over 90% of central banks, which are in the process of either research or development, or there's definitely some form of involvement with CBDC. As you can see, this is how much interest there is, and of course that's when you talk about CBDC as a new instrument, is really at the beginning of its full to see its full potential. As of now, there are only two CBDC which are at the national level. Both of them, are in the Caribbean region, but of course that's a lot of very good research and pilots are happening both in Europe and also in Asia. And with that, and I'm very happy to have these two amazing speakers who will share with us of their insights. And I first would like to invite Philipp to introduce yourself.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks very much. My name is Philipp. I am working at the university, which is called Frankfurt School, which is apparently in Frankfurt. It's one of the three universities we are having in Frankfurt. And the Blockchain Center is to be seen like a research institute sitting at the university. We are also doing conferences. We are also engaged with practical tasks. We are also doing consulting. And from a content perspective, we are at this point of time focusing on primarily crypto assets, DeFi, also the digital euro, where the CBDC topic belongs to. And because the dynamic is increasing, we also focusing on digital securities. My position concerning digital euro, I will probably answer once you pose the right question, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, I'd like to just also have Oriol, and please introduce yourself.
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here today. It is my pleasure. And basically, well, I work as a fintech advisor, advising several companies from Hong Kong as well as Europe. And I'm also a fellow at several institutions, such as, for example, the Digital Euro Association, Singapore University of Social Sciences, as well as honorary fellow at the University of Hong Kong. And I'm also a fintech mentor at Cyberport Hong Kong, R3, F10 in Singapore. So basically, I try to bring my perspective from both the world of academia and the professional world. And I'm mostly an expert on CBDCs in Asia. I'm not such an expert when it comes to digital euro, for example. That's something more for Philipp, no? So my main area of research is the digital yuan, and as well as some other projects in Asia, such as CBDC Bridge, the tests in Japan and Korea, etc.
Thank you very much. So, as you can see, that's it's again bringing it back to the Asia Berlin, and we have an expert who just know everything about Europe, and we have an expert who can just ask a question from Asia. And from the audience, if you have any question, feel free to just send in, and we can just bring that to the speaker. And my first question to them is around motivation. And as a central bank in different countries do have different motivation in introducing CBDC. And in my own position at AWS, that we have had conversation with many central banks on mostly technology related issue, but from that work that we have heard of, the first thing they share with us is always about motivation, because without the right motivation, and then you don't really know what technology will be needed to just support that motivation. So Philipp, for digital euro, and what did you hear in terms of motivation, and is the motivation what you hear is relevant to many of the current challenge faced by the financial system in Europe?
Okay, that's a good question, but it's I could also answer there for half an hour. It's a very lengthy.
Yeah.
I will try to keep it short. So first of all, I think there are good reasons why, for example, the euro or the US dollar, I simply talk about the euro, but I mean also US dollars, Swiss franc, and all kinds of other currencies. Why all these currencies should go on a blockchain system, for example, to streamline processes and so on. And the most crucial question here is, and I think this question is very often not thought about, is the question, what type of transaction am I doing and why do I want to do this? And here I typically distinguish between the following areas. We have the industrial domain, that's basically monetary payments between two companies, like automotive supplier paying BMW, for example. So payment between companies. Then we have the capital market. That's, for example, asset managers and others who are investing in stocks. So they give euro and get a Daimler stock, for example. That's the capital market domain. Then we have remittances. That's the domain where money is transferred across borders, not just among Euroland, but also, say, from Europe to Thailand or elsewhere. So basically international payments outside the euro area. Then we have the wholesale area. That's basically the domain happening in the back end. That's basically the payment flows between central bank and financial institutions. And finally, we also have the retail area, which should not be forgotten. That's basically us as citizens of Europe or other countries. I might want to purchase something in the supermarket or purchase a pizza in a restaurant and so on. Then I'm paying. That's in my mind these 5 domains. And for example, if we are talking about what the ECB at this point of time is focusing on, then in my opinion, the ECB is focusing on the 5th domain. That's basically retail payments. That's basically how I feel that the ECB is trying to structure this. So they are partly neglecting the other domains, and therefore they are just, and this is quite sad, they are just focusing on this 5th domain of retail payments. And with this, that's once again my interpretation. We have to ask how this is solved nowadays. And nowadays we have PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, and other payment providers. So in my mind, what the ECB is doing is trying to create a digital variant for Europe to target the area of credit card payments, right? Because right now, also with Corona, more and more payments are going mobile to the smartphone and so on. And therefore, I think that the ECB is noticing that the contact to the end customer is fading away because physical money, paper, and coins are not used so often anymore because mobile payment is on the rise. And with this, mobile payment is automatically going towards PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, and so on. And therefore, I think what the ECB is having in mind is primarily having the impact to challenge these credit card providers and mobile payment operators. And last sentence from my side at this point of time is, this is good because it tries to create a sovereign payment infrastructure for Europe, but it's not good enough because we have these other four domains which are not addressed. And it's also not speedy enough because we see in China that their system over there is basically live. They have done test transactions with millions of people, right? And the ECB at this point of time is focusing on investigation of this topic, doing studies and analysis, which is all fine, you know, but at some point of time, people need to start programming, because without programming, never ever a system will become live. And therefore, I would hope that the ECB and maybe also the Fed and others will speed up their development a little bit.
Yeah, and thank you. And I think you speak on several very interesting points. One is, from the motivation, definitely their existing problem. And so, which means that the digital euro has its foundation, and the foundation is, the challenge is real, and where CBDC is one of the, the instrument to address the challenge. And of course, there that you see, CBDC could be an instrument which enhance competition, and where through competition maybe some of the existing challenges could be addressed. And of course, you also talk about the urgency, and where that's how fast can ECB move, and I think those are very valid points. And Oriol, and so now, as what you mentioned in your introduction, you are an expert of the Chinese digital yuan. What's going on there, and what is China hoping to achieve with DCEP?
Sure. I mean, this is actually related to what Philipp just mentioned when he was talking about the European Central Bank. China actually started much before anyone else, to do research on the digital yuan. They actually started to do like the theoretical research in 2014, and they spent 6 years doing that. And it wasn't until last year, 2020, in April/May, when they started to actually test the digital yuan, like in practice, and like using, using real people and real money, to put it this way, to doing like those actual tests. I mean, they started only in 4 cities first, cities which had like strategic reasons for China, such as, for example, Suzhou, which is close to Shanghai, Shenzhen, which, as you know, is like China's Silicon Valley, close to Hong Kong, Xiong'an, and Chengdu. So they started in those 4 cities, like with only small amounts of money, and they kind of like sped up this process and moved forward, and to the point we are today. So it's not massively deployed yet. We are still on this test phase, but it's going to be theoretically, and I think it's going to happen, deployed by the Winter Olympic Games in Beijing next year. So it's going. In total, it will have been a 6-year research process plus a 2-year test process before being actually able, the People's Bank of China, to deploy it. And maybe moving a bit backwards, I mean, there are like several possible motivations behind CBDCs, in line of what Philipp said before. I mean, CBDCs may be designed and deployed to replace physical banknotes. They may be deployed for monetary policy purposes, as a tool to improve financial stability, for financial inclusion purposes as well, to fight financial crime, for global geopolitics. So I don't mean that CBDC needs only to focus on one of those motivations, because it's possible for CBDC to fulfill, of course, more than one. But I feel like behind each central bank, there's going to be one of these reasons which is going to be like maybe more important than the other one. So the approach that the European Central Bank is going to do is going to be different from that of China, in the sense that China's objectives may be different. In the case of China, well, I would say that I don't think that it's so much about making the Chinese society become more digital, because, I mean, let's face it, they are already very digital. I mean, most people in China already pay using WeChat Pay, Alipay, this kind of digital payment apps. So I don't think that's the idea behind that. But to me, one key point behind, the rationale behind the way they've decided to push forward this project is to try to some extent internationalize the yuan. using the digital yuan. I mean, it's not an easy task because, I mean, as you know, the US dollar has been like the most widely used currency, like international trade, like for decades, you know. So it's difficult to change that. It's not going to change overnight or maybe never. But the idea is that one, to try to slowly challenge that, or at least to make digital yuan become more important in international trade. And I think it's not like that just because I say so. I mean, if we look at everything that's been happening in China these last few months, we realize that that's actually one of their main targets. Because we saw, for example, in February, the People's Bank of China signing a joint venture with SWIFT with the goal precisely to internationalize the yuan. We also saw China starting to test the digital yuan in Hong Kong for cross-border payments. We also saw China last November, signing the RCEP free trade agreement, which, as you know, created this huge free trade area encompassing like more than 30% of the total global population and also of the total global GDP. So, I mean, and this RCEP free trade area is important for digital yuan in the sense that it's going to allow theoretically and to create an area where China is going to be able, to some extent, to deploy the digital yuan. But I mean, as I said, it's still too early, like, to affirm anything in the sense that one of the key areas when it comes to internationalize CBDC is that of interoperability. So it's way too early to know whether China is going to succeed or not. But at least to me, that's the main rationale that they have.
Thank you very much. And you definitely brought several very interesting perspectives. Number one is that, for anyone who just have doubt to their own central banks, are you too slow? And look at China, they are fast. But then you bring the timeline that they started in 2014. So from 2014 to, it's not that, so you probably need to adjust the expectation to your own central bank and then give them some space and then they can just continue to just develop this further. And the second piece, what you said was also interesting is, definitely, different country or central bank have different motivation, and especially considering their, regional or country domestic situation, and even within the similar, policy goals. And when you translate that policy goal into different, country context, that will mean very different things. And, when you try to address a retail challenge, when you try to just internationalize your national currency, or you want to address, financial inclusion, and each has to be contextualized in your own country. And a good example, when I hosted a event 2 weeks ago, and with Bank of Canada, Bank of Uruguay, and Bank of Haiti, and also Bank of Jamaica, and on CBDC for financial inclusion. And even just for this one motivation, financial inclusion, when you talk about Canada, which has 98% of population already are in the financial system, and while in other like the Caribbean country, and then 30-60% of the population are really are banked. So using CBDC for financial inclusion, then they translate that into very different type of agenda, where Canada was talking about universal access, while the Caribbean country were talking about really including those who are unbanked, underbanked into the system. So then they're really, that also have the technology implication. And my second question is around the technology part, that many researchers or citizens have questions that why now? Why not earlier? Why not later? But why CBDC, central banks worldwide just started to having interest at this point of time? And that's, the technology advancement of blockchain play any role in the whole CBDC, advancement, and what role is that? And maybe we again start from Philipp.
Yeah, very good question. Why now? That's an interesting point. So I just thought about it and made some notes here. I think Bitcoin and other crypto assets are now out there for quite a while, but central banks and policymakers did not really see them as a threat or something to take serious. So it always, people thought, yeah, cryptocurrencies, they come and they go, and it's speculative, and it's a two-way bubble, and so on. Let's not care about it, right? Now crypto assets have grown, and now suddenly crypto assets, especially Bitcoin, see El Salvador is indeed viewed as a potential alternative in the future, but only by very few people. I think crypto assets, Bitcoin and co, are still not taken very seriously on behalf of the senior policymaker, right? That's driver number one. Driver number two is Facebook's project Libra, which came to us 2.5 years ago. At the end of the day, nothing happened, right? It was just a white paper. They did a little bit of programming, but not much happened. Now they have changed their name to Diem. They now have also left Europe, and they will now focus on a new product, which is simply a US dollar reference stablecoin, similarly as we already have it with Tether and USDC, right? So, but still, the white paper and the marketing buzz around Libra really pushed governments, policymakers, and central banks to now investigate this topic. And you could really see that since this April 2019, intensity significantly increased to investigate this topic. And now, after observing China for a couple of years, people are also discovering that the Chinese system is basically ready to go live in next year. Test runs are being made with millions of people. And therefore, they are now also seeing that China might really have a leap forward and is advanced very much, such that central banks are also now investigating this with increasing intensity. I think two more points I would like to point out here. We talk about CBDCs, but to be honest, I think we should not leave out stablecoins, because at this point of time, there is a US dollar running in a digital form already. This is called stablecoin. You can say that Tether is shaky and USDC is also not perfectly regulated and it needs to improve and so on. But in case you are raising the bar a little bit from a regulatory perspective, then you already have a solution there which puts the dollar on a blockchain system. It's not a CBDC, but it's still a solution for digital payments around the world, right? And it does work, right? We see a daily transaction volume of dozens of billions of US dollar. That's trillions per month, right? And it does work. We can observe it. It's moving money, but still stablecoins, especially from a European perspective, stablecoins are not taken seriously, because everybody in Europe is happy that Libra has left the continent, and stablecoins are at this point of time strongly bound to DeFi and to crypto assets. And if you don't taking DeFi serious, then of course you also don't take stablecoin serious. But still, stablecoins are a solution to the question or to the problem how to get money on chain, and stablecoins could be, once regulated more, a very, very interesting solution, at least for the US dollar. So my interpretation at this point of time is, in China, you have a state-owned system run by the central bank and by others. In the US dollar, you have a gap because the Fed has not made such a high-speed development as in China. And this gap potentially for the US dollar is filled by the US dollar reference stablecoins. So China has a solution. The US might also have a solution once they are acknowledging stablecoins. But I think in Europe, we have a problem because we neither have a state-owned system, which will be launched in a couple of years, and we are also not having Euro referenced stablecoins, right? So I think Euro is a little bit in trouble here because we have neither solution. And that's basically how I would see it at this point of time. But the most important point is, what we are discussing here, CBDCs and stablecoins and so on. It's a geopolitical, highly strategic topic, which slowly people, policymakers, politicians, and so on start to take it serious. But I think people should take it even more serious because it really has a geopolitical component.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, it's a very important point. When you discuss CBDC, can you really avoid a stable coin? And if you really avoid stable coin, and what opportunities have you missed? So I think, you raise this question to all the central bankers when they are just thinking about this, and then probably, more research or more discussion, need to happen also around stablecoin when you just discussed about CBDC. And yeah, so Oriol?
Yes, basically, I agree with what Philip just said. I think it's, I mean, this rise of CBDCs from these last maybe 2 years has come because of a combination of many different factors. I mean, it's Libra/Diem. It's also the rise of digital assets. It's also China being so advanced. I mean, it's like many factors together that have caused this current situation. To some extent, perhaps the pandemic as well, because everything seems to have become like much more digital. It's like many different factors. And when it comes to the technology side, well, I mean, I think it's important to remark that CBDCs don't need per se to use blockchain, no? But it might be compatible and useful for them to do so. And well, I think it's important in that sense, for example, to refer to this project Aber, which I'm going to talk about later, maybe. But it's a project that was performed in the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia between both central banks, and basically the idea was to test whether it was feasible to issue in the future a cross-border wholesale CBDC. In that case, we're talking about a wholesale CBDC. And this project also wanted to learn whether it was possible and useful to do so by using a blockchain. And I think the conclusions of that project, of that report, are actually worth reading. I mean, it's a report that was published last year. I think it was on November 30. And it's interesting because they said that it wasn't not only viable and possible to issue a wholesale CBDC between both countries for interbanking clearing operations and payments, but also they stated that using blockchain was actually very beneficial. No? So, I mean, we saw, for example, two central banks admitting how beneficial it might be to use blockchain in this area. So that's actually related to what you mentioned before, no, Shermin, about the blockchain maybe being more ripe right now than it was 10 years ago. No? So this is like this combination of factors. I mean, it's not just about China starting to test digital yuan or Diem. No, I mean, it's that plus blockchain being now much more mainstream and ripe. It's like many.
Thank you.